You stole my home. Now sleep in the wreckage.
The text message wasn't meant for me, but there it was, glowing on Bernice's phone screen like a neon sign advertising my humiliation. Can't wait to see you sweat again tonight. Jay. I stood there in our kitchen, grease still caked under my fingernails from fixing the truck, staring at those words until they burned into my retinas. 26 years of marriage, and this is how I find out my wife's been playing house with some gym rat named Jay. Jean? You coming to bed? Bernice's voice drifted down from upstairs, sweet as honey, fake as her new blonde highlights. Yeah, just finishing up, I called back, my voice steady despite the fact that my world had just imploded. I set her phone back on the counter exactly where she'd left it, next to her reading glasses and that expensive face cream she'd been buying lately. Everything suddenly made sense. The new clothes, the gym membership, the way she'd started showering as soon as she got home from work. I walked outside to my workshop, needing air that didn't smell like her perfume and lies. The October night was crisp, and Mrs. O'Hara's kitchen light was on across the street. That woman saw everything in this neighborhood, probably knew about Bernice's affair before I did. My hands shook as I lit a cigarette, my first in 3 years. Bernice had made me quit, said it was disgusting. Funny how her standards had shifted. The workshop was my sanctuary, tools organized on pegboards, my old boxing gloves hanging from a nail, photos of better times tacked to the walls. There was one of me and Bernice from our honeymoon, both of us young and stupid and in love, or at least I thought we were. I pulled out my phone and did what any self-respecting husband would do in 2023. I became a detective. Bernice's social media was locked down tight, but she'd forgotten about our shared Apple account. Find My iPhone showed her location history, and son of a crapwitch if she hadn't been making regular trips to the Sunset Motel on Route 9. The Sunset Motel. Jesus Christ. It was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions about wedding rings. I dug deeper, checking our credit card statements online. CrossFit membership at Maloney's gym, $150 a month. Hotel charges I didn't recognize. Dinner at restaurants we'd never been to together. The paper trail of betrayal laid out in neat columns of dates and dollar amounts. Dad, what are you doing out here? I spun around to find Lila standing in the doorway, her college sweatshirt hanging loose over pajama pants. My daughter looked just like Bernice had at that age, sharp features, intelligent eyes, that way of tilting her head when she was suspicious. Just thinking, I said, stubbing out the cigarette. About what? You look like someone died. Maybe someone did. The words came out before I could stop them. Lila stepped closer, and I could see the concern in her eyes. At 23, she was old enough to understand that her parents' marriage wasn't the fairy tale she'd grown up believing in. Dad, is everything okay? You and Mom have been weird lately. I wanted to tell her everything about the text, the motel, the credit card charges. But what kind of father destroys his daughter's image of her mother at midnight in a garage that smelled like motor oil and disappointment? Your mom and I are just going through some stuff, I said instead. Nothing for you to worry about. But Lila wasn't buying it. She had her mother's BS screw detector, unfortunately. Is it about money? Because I heard you guys fighting last week about the mortgage payment. That was news to me. We were behind on the mortgage. I made decent money managing the warehouse at Patterson Auto Parts. And Bernice pulled in good money as a paralegal at Morrison & Associates. Where the hell was our money going? What exactly did you hear? I asked. Mom was on the phone with someone talking about refinancing or something. She sounded stressed. Lila wrapped her arms around herself. And she's been going out a lot more lately. Says it's work stuff, but what? I don't know. She just seems different. Happier, I guess. Like she's got some secret. The knife in my back twisted a little deeper. My wife was glowing with the happiness of new love, while I was working overtime to keep our heads above water. Dad, you're scaring me. What's really going on? I looked at my daughter, smart, successful, about to graduate with a degree in communications, and a bright future ahead of her. She didn't need her old man's problems weighing her down. Nothing I can't handle, sweetheart. You should get some sleep. Don't you have that presentation tomorrow? She nodded reluctantly. Yeah, for my social media marketing class, we're supposed to present our personal brand strategies. Personal brand? Christ, when did everything become about image and marketing? When did real life turn into a performance for an invisible audience? You'll do great, I said, forcing a smile. You always do. After Lila went back inside, I sat in the dark workshop for another hour, planning my next move. I could confront Bernice directly, but that would just lead to denials and gaslighting. I could hire a private investigator, but that cost money we apparently didn't have. Or I could do what any blue-collar guy with half a brain would do. I could gather evidence. The next morning, Bernice was all sunshine and coffee kisses, humming while she got ready for work. She'd chosen a tight black dress that showed off the results of all that time at Maloney's gym. "You're in a good mood," I observed, watching her apply lipstick in the hallway mirror. "It's a beautiful day," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I've got that deposition at 10, then lunch with Aaron. Might be late tonight. We're having drinks after." Aaron Walsh, her best friend since law school. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Aaron had been divorced twice and had the morals of an alley cat. Perfect wingwoman for a cheating wife. "Which bar?" I asked casually. "Oh, you know, that new place downtown, Harvest something." There was no new place downtown called Harvest anything. I knew because I'd driven every street in this dying city looking for work over the years. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek. She smelled like guilt and expensive perfume. After Bernice left, I called in sick to work. First time in 2 years. Then I drove to Maloney's gym on the other side of town. It was one of those CrossFit places that looked like a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and motivational posters about crushing your goals. Through the front window, I could see him. Jeff Coach Maloney, according to the sign by the door. Mid-40s, built like a linebacker with the kind of artificial tan that screamed insecurity. He was spotting a blonde woman doing squats, his hands a little too close to her A for professional courtesy. This was the man my wife was throwing away our marriage for. This spray-tanned meathead with his backward baseball cap and tribal tattoos, I'd been replaced by a walking cliché. I spent the morning conducting surveillance like some discount private eye. Followed Jeff's schedule, learned his routines, figured out his weaknesses. The gym was busy in the morning, but dead by afternoon. His Jeep Wrangler, license plate Coach 1, was parked in the same spot every day. The man was predictable, which would make what came next easier. At 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Bernice. "Deposition running long. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you." The casual cruelty of those words hit me like a punch to the gut. She could lie to my face, screw another man, and still sign off with "love you" like it meant nothing. I drove to the Sunset Motel and waited. Sure enough, at 4:15, Bernice's Honda Accord pulled into the parking lot, followed 5 minutes later by Coach's Jeep. They didn't even try to be discreet. Walked right into room 237 like they owned the place. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, rage building like pressure in a boiler. Then I got out and walked over to Jeff's Jeep. The key to revenge isn't violence. It's creativity. I pulled out my pocket knife and gave each tire a slow, deliberate puncture. Not slashing. That would be too obvious. Just a small hole that would leave him stranded but confused. Then I left a note under his windshield wiper. "Hope you're insured, Coach. A concerned citizen." The next morning, Mrs. O'Hara was practically vibrating with gossip when I checked the mailbox. "Jean, honey, did you know your wife's car was at that motel on Route 9 yesterday? My sister Dolores saw it when she was driving back from her doctor's appointment." "Isn't that strange?" I feigned surprise. "Really? Maybe she was meeting a client there. You know how lawyers are. They'll meet anywhere if the money's right." But Mrs. O'Hara's eyes were sharp as a hawk's. At 4 in the afternoon, with some muscle-bound fellow in a Jeep, Dolores said they looked awfully friendly. And just like that, the gossip mill started grinding. In a town this size, rumors spread faster than wildfire. By lunch, half the neighborhood would know that Bernice Braun was stepping out on her husband. Let the games begin. The gossip hit Bernice like a freight train. I could see it in her face when she came home that evening. The tight smile, the defensive posture, the way she avoided eye contact while asking about my day. "How was work?" she asked, bustling around the kitchen like a woman with something to prove. "Interesting," I said, cracking open a beer. Mrs. O'Hara mentioned the strangest thing. "Said someone saw your car at the Sunset Motel yesterday." Bernice's hands stilled on the dish towel. "Oh, that. I had to meet a client there. Messy divorce case. The husband was hiding assets. Sometimes you have to go where the evidence is." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly I almost admired her skill. Almost. "Must have been some case," I said. "Mrs. O'Hara said you were there with some guy in a Jeep." "The client's brother. He was providing testimony about the husband's gambling debts. Another lie, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd been practicing. I nodded like I believed her. Well, you know how people talk in this town. Probably best to meet clients at the office from now on. Wouldn't want anyone getting the wrong idea. That night, Bernice lay beside me in our bed, and I could feel the tension radiating from her body like heat from a furnace. She thought she'd been caught, but she wasn't sure how much I knew. The uncertainty was eating her alive. Good. The next few days passed in a haze of fake normalcy. Bernice went to work, I went to work. We made small talk over dinner and pretended everything was fine. But I could see the cracks forming. She was jumpy, checking her phone constantly, making excuses to leave the house. Meanwhile, I was conducting my own investigation. I'd installed a GPS tracker on her car, a little device I'd ordered online for $60. Legal gray area, but we were married and it was jointly owned, so I figured I had some rights. The tracker told a story of deception that would have impressed a spy novelist. Bernice was meeting Jeff 3 times a week, sometimes at the motel, sometimes at his apartment, once at a restaurant 2 towns over where she thought no one would recognize her. I also discovered that our financial situation was worse than I'd thought. Much worse. Bernice had taken out a second mortgage on the house without telling me, forged my signature on the documents. The money, $75,000, had gone into a business account for something called Maloney Fitness Enterprises. My wife hadn't just cheated on me. She'd bankrolled her lover's business with our home as collateral. The rage I felt was pure and clean, like the flame from a welding torch. But I didn't let it consume me. Instead, I channeled it into planning. Every great revenge requires patience, preparation, and perfect timing. I started going to Mick's boxing gym downtown, working out my frustrations on the heavy bag. Mick Torino had trained me when I was young, and stupid enough to think I could make money with my fists. Now he was in his 70s, still sharp as a tack, still dispensing wisdom along with boxing lessons. "You look like crap, Gene," he said, watching me pound the bag with more fury than technique. "Thanks, Mick. You always know just what to say." "I'm serious. You're all over the place. What's eating you?" I told him everything. The affair, the money, the lies. Mick listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making small sounds of disapproval. "So, what are you going to do about it?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know. Divorce her, I guess. Take her for everything she's worth." Mick shook his head. "Divorce is expensive, and lawyers always win. You want real revenge? Make it hurt where it counts. Reputation, money, pride. Hit them where they live." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Your wife's a paralegal. Her reputation is everything. This coach-a-hole runs a business that depends on trust and image. They've given you weapons, Gene. You just gotta be smart about how you use them." That weekend was Lila's college awards ceremony. She was receiving some honor for her social media marketing project. Apparently, she'd built a following of 50,000 people on TikTok and Instagram. I was proud of her success, even if I didn't understand how posting videos of yourself could be considered a career. Bernice and I drove separately to the ceremony. She claimed she had to stop by the office first, but I knew she was really meeting Jeff. The GPS tracker confirmed it, a quick rendezvous at his apartment before heading to the college. The ceremony was held in the university's main auditorium, a grand space that made me feel underdressed in my department store suit. I found a seat in the middle section and watched as students and parents filed in, everyone dressed in their finest clothes, everyone pretending their lives were perfect. Bernice arrived 20 minutes late, slightly disheveled, her lipstick freshly applied. She spotted me and waved, then made her way down the row to sit beside me. "Sorry I'm late," she whispered. "Last-minute client crisis." "No problem," I replied, not bothering to hide the sarcasm in my voice. The ceremony began with the usual pomp and circumstance. Speeches about achievement and potential, awards for various academic accomplishments. When they called Lila's name for the social media marketing award, I stood and applauded, genuinely proud of my daughter despite everything else falling apart in my life. But then I saw him, Jeff Maloney, sitting 3 rows behind us, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He caught my eye and had the balls to smile and wave like we were old friends. The mother had come to my daughter's awards ceremony. He was inserting himself into my family like a parasite, claiming territory that belonged to me. During the reception afterward, I watched Jeff work the room like a politician. He charmed the other parents, complimented their children, played the role of successful businessman and community leader. And worst of all, he was good at it. People liked him. I was standing by the refreshment table, nursing a cup of coffee that tasted like dishwater when Jeff approached me. "Gene, right? I'm Jeff Maloney. I think we have some mutual friends." He extended his hand with a crap-eating grin that made me want to break his jaw. Instead, I shook it, noting the soft skin and manicured nails. This was supposed to be my replacement? This pampered pretty boy? "Do we?" I asked, playing dumb. "Yeah, I think your wife mentioned you. Bernice, right? Great lady. Really dedicated to her fitness goals." The casual way he said her name, the implication that he knew her better than I did, it was like a slap in the face, but I kept my expression neutral. "Bernice has always been goal-oriented," I said. "Sometimes she gets so focused on what she wants, she forgets about everything else." Jeff's smile faltered slightly. He wasn't sure if I was being friendly or threatening. Good. Let him wonder. "Well, it's been great talking to you," he said, backing away. "Maybe I'll see you around town." "Oh, I'm sure you will," I replied. Small town and all, everyone knows everyone's business eventually. That night, Lila posted a series of photos from the ceremony on her social media accounts. One of them showed her with Bernice and Jeff, all smiles and congratulations. The caption read, "So grateful for all the support from my amazing mom and her friend Coach Jeff. #blessed#family #success." The comments were immediate and brutal. "Who's the hot guy? New stepdad? Your mom's got good taste. Is your dad okay with this? Awkward? Girl, your mom is living. Get it, queen." I screenshot every comment before Lila could delete them. Evidence for later. The next morning, I found Bernice in the kitchen, furiously typing on her phone. Her face was flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Lila needs to be more careful about what she posts online," she said without looking up. "People are getting the wrong idea about Jeff." "Are they?" I asked, pouring myself coffee. "What idea would that be?" "You know how people talk. They see a man and woman together and immediately assume something inappropriate." "Well, maybe you and Jeff should be more careful about appearances. Wouldn't want anyone to get the wrong idea about your fitness training." Bernice's head snapped up, her eyes sharp with suspicion. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that small towns love their gossip. Mrs. O'Hara's been asking questions, and you know how she talks." I could see the wheels turning in Bernice's head. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much damage control she needed to do. The uncertainty was eliminating her. "Gene, is there something you want to ask me?" This was my chance. I could confront her directly, demand the truth, force a showdown, but that would end the game too quickly. I was having too much fun watching her squirm. "Nope," I said, grabbing my lunchbox. "Just making conversation. Have a good day at work, honey. Try to stay out of trouble." I left her standing in the kitchen, confusion and fear written across her face like a roadmap to her guilt. The war had begun, and I was winning. I spent the next week learning everything there was to know about Jeff Maloney and his business. Public records, social media, customer reviews, financial filings. I became a one-man intelligence operation. What I discovered was beautiful in its simplicity. Jeff was broke. The gym was hemorrhaging money. His business loans were in default, and he was 3 months behind on rent. The man who was stealing my wife was a financial disaster wrapped in designer workout clothes. Even better, I found out about the steroids. Jeff wasn't just selling fitness. He was selling pharmaceutical enhancements to his clients. Nothing too serious. Just enough to give middle-aged men the illusion of reclaimed youth. But it was illegal. And more importantly, it was the kind of scandal that could destroy his reputation overnight. I also discovered that Bernice's $75,000 investment in Maloney Fitness Enterprises was the only thing keeping Jeff's business afloat. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was being played by a con man who saw her as a meal ticket. Armed with this knowledge, I began my counterattack. First, I moved our savings to a new account that only I controlled. Legal, since it was marital property, but it would leave Bernice scrambling when she tried to access funds for her next investment in Jeff's failing business. Second, I stopped making payments on Lila's college expenses. If Bernice wanted to fund her boyfriend's gym instead of our daughter's education, she could figure out how to do both. Third, I started documenting everything. Photos of Bernice's car at the motel, screenshots of Jeff's social media posts about his amazing business partner, copies of the forged mortgage documents. I was building a case that would destroy both of them in divorce court, but I wasn't ready for divorce court yet. I was having too much fun. The first crack in their facade came when Bernice tried to access our savings account to cover a bounced check. The account was empty, transferred to my new bank across town. "Jean, what happened to our money?" she demanded, cornering me in the garage where I was working on my truck. "What money?" I asked, not looking up from the engine. "Our savings account. There's nothing in it." "Huh, that's weird. Maybe the bank made an error." "This isn't a joke. I have bills to pay, commitments to meet." "What kind of commitments?" I asked, finally meeting her eyes. "Anything I should know about?" Bernice's face went through a series of expressions: anger, fear, calculation. She was trying to figure out how much to reveal without incriminating herself. "Just business expenses, things for work." "Funny how your work expenses keep getting more expensive. First the gym membership, then the new clothes, now mysterious business commitments." "What exactly are you working on, Bernice?" She turned and stalked back into the house without answering. That evening, I heard her on the phone in our bedroom, her voice low and urgent. She was talking to someone about money, about loans, about keeping things quiet until we can figure this out. The next morning, I drove to Maloney's gym at 6 a.m. before the morning rush. Jeff's Jeep was already in the parking lot. The man was nothing if not dedicated to his failing business. I parked across the street and waited. At 6:30, Jeff came outside to move some equipment. I got out of my truck and walked over. "Morning, coach," I called out. "Nice morning for a workout." Jeff looked up, surprised. "Oh, hey, Jean, you thinking about joining? We've got some great programs for guys our age." "Our age?" I laughed. "I'm 51, son. You look like you're pushing 50 yourself despite all the chemical help." His face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that you look good for a man your age. Must be all that dedication to fitness." I let my eyes linger on his overly muscled frame, the kind of development that didn't come from hard work alone. Jeff caught the implication and his hands clenched into fists. "You got something to say to me, old man?" "Just wondering how business is going. I heard you've got some financial troubles." "Tough economy for small businesses." "Business is fine," he said, but I could see the sweat on his forehead despite the cool morning air. "Good to hear. Hate to see a local business fail, especially one that's gotten so much community investment." I walked away before he could respond, leaving him standing in the parking lot with confusion and anger written across his steroid-enhanced features. That afternoon, I made an anonymous call to the state health department reporting suspected illegal pill sales at Maloney's gym. I also sent an anonymous tip to the local newspaper about a fitness center that was allegedly selling performance-enhancing pills to clients. The health department investigation would take weeks, but the newspaper tip paid off immediately. A reporter showed up at the gym the next day, asking questions about Jeff's training methods and supplement recommendations. Jeff handled it poorly, getting defensive and aggressive, which only made him look more guilty. The story ran 3 days later. Local gym under investigation for alleged steroid sales. It was a small article buried on page 6, but in a town this size, it might as well have been front-page news. Jeff's client roster began shrinking immediately. Suburban moms didn't want to work out at a place associated with illegal pills. Business executives canceled their memberships rather than risk association with a scandal. Within a week, Maloney's gym went from busy to nearly empty. But the real masterpiece came when I leaked Bernice's involvement to her law firm. Morrison & Associates was an old-school firm that prided itself on respectability and conservative values. The senior partners were all members of the country club, pillars of the community, men who valued their reputations above all else. I didn't have to do much, just send an anonymous email with copies of the mortgage documents showing Bernice's $75,000 investment in a business now under investigation for illegal pill sales. I included photos of her car at the Sunset Motel and screenshots of Jeff's social media posts, thanking his amazing business partner. The firm's HR department called Bernice in for a meeting the next morning. She came home that evening looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "They suspended me," she said, standing in our living room like a defendant awaiting sentencing, "pending investigation into potential ethical violations." "What kind of ethical violations?" I asked, though I already knew. "Someone sent them information about my investment in Jeff's gym. They're saying I violated conflict of interest policies by not disclosing outside business relationships. Did you violate those policies?" "It's complicated. The investment was personal, not professional, but they're saying it creates an appearance of impropriety." "And does it?" Bernice's composure finally cracked. "God damn it, Jean. Whose side are you on here? I'm on the side of truth, I said calmly. If you haven't done anything wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. But we both knew she had plenty to worry about. The law firm's investigation would uncover the forged mortgage documents, the secret business relationship, and probably the affair. Bernice's career, the thing she'd worked 20 years to build, was circling the drain. That night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Part of me felt sorry for her, the part that remembered loving her once upon a time. But that part was getting smaller every day, crowded out by anger and the sweet taste of revenge. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen table. Gone to errands to think. Need some space. B. Aaron Walsh, the divorce attorney who'd been enabling Bernice's affair from the beginning. Perfect. Now they could plan their next move together while I planned mine. I spent the day at Mick's gym, working out my frustrations on the heavy bag and planning the next phase of my campaign. Mick watched me train, occasionally offering technical advice or philosophical observations. "You're getting stronger," he said as I finished a particularly brutal session with the bag. "Anger's good motivation," I replied, unwrapping my hands. "Anger's fuel," Mick corrected. "But you need more than fuel. You need a destination." "What do you mean?" "I mean, what's your endgame here? You gonna keep picking at them until they bleed out, or you gonna finish this?" I thought about it while I showered and changed. What did I want? Divorce, reconciliation, complete destruction of everyone who'd betrayed me. The answer came to me as I was driving home through our quiet neighborhood, past houses full of families who still believed in things like loyalty and commitment and keeping your word. I wanted them to understand what they'd taken from me. I wanted them to feel the same humiliation, the same helplessness, the same grinding sense of betrayal that had been eating at me for weeks. I wanted them to lose everything that mattered to them, the same way they'd made me lose everything that mattered to me, and I knew exactly how to do it. Bernice stayed at errands for 3 days, which gave me time to prepare for the next phase of my plan. I used her absence to search through her personal belongings, her laptop, her files, her hidden stash of documents in the bedroom closet. What I found was a conspiracy that went deeper than I'd imagined. Aaron Walsh wasn't just enabling Bernice's affair, she was orchestrating it. I found emails going back 6 months with Aaron encouraging Bernice to explore her options and think about what would make her happy. There were detailed discussions about divorce strategy, asset protection, and how to maximize Bernice's settlement while minimizing mine. But the real bombshell was buried in a folder labeled Insurance Documents. Aaron had helped Bernice take out a life insurance policy on me, $500,000, with Bernice as the sole beneficiary. The policy was dated just 2 months ago, right around the time the affair with Jeff had started getting serious. Now, I'm not a paranoid man, but when your cheating wife takes out a $500,000 life insurance policy on you while planning her exit strategy, it tends to focus the mind. I photographed everything, uploaded copies to a secure cloud account, and put the originals back exactly where I'd found them. If Bernice and Aaron wanted to play games, I'd show them what a real player looked like. When Bernice came home on Thursday evening, she was different, harder. The guilt and uncertainty were gone, replaced by cold calculation. "We need to talk," she said, setting down her suitcase in the hallway. "I'm listening." "This isn't working anymore, Jean. We both know it. We've grown apart. We want different things. Maybe it's time to admit that and move on." "Move on to what?" "I don't know. Separate lives, new beginnings, a chance to be happy again." It was a pretty speech, probably rehearsed with Aaron over wine and strategizing, but I could see through it to the calculation underneath. Bernice wasn't asking for a divorce. She was positioning herself for maximum advantage when she filed for one. "And what about our daughter? Our home? 26 years of marriage?" "Lila's an adult. She'll understand." "As for the house," Bernice shrugged, "we'll figure it out. These things always work out if both parties are reasonable." "Reasonable?" "Right, like secretly mortgaging our home to fund your boyfriend's business was reasonable. Like forging my signature on legal documents was reasonable. Like taking out a life insurance policy on your husband while planning to leave him was reasonable." "I need some time to think about it," I said. "Of course, take all the time you need. Just don't take too long. Life is short and we're not getting any younger." That night, Bernice slept in the guest room. She said it was to give us both some space to process, but I knew the real reason. She was afraid of me now, afraid of what I might do if I discovered the full extent of her betrayal. She was right to be afraid. The next morning, I called in sick to work again and drove to Jeff's gym. It was nearly empty. The steroid scandal had eliminated his business faster than I'd expected. I found him in his office, staring at a computer screen full of red numbers. "Gene," he said, looking up with surprise and something that might have been fear. "What brings you here?" "Thought we should have a conversation, man to man." Jeff stood up, trying to project confidence, despite the fact that his world was crumbling around him. "What kind of conversation? The kind where I tell you I know everything and you decide whether to make this easy or hard on yourself?" "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of his Jeep at the Sunset Motel. Then another of him and Bernice at a restaurant in the next town. Then a screenshot of the mortgage documents showing Bernice's investment in his business. Jeff's face went pale. "Look, Gene, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're screwing my wife and stealing my money. The only question is what we're going to do about it." "What do you want?" "I want you gone. Out of town, out of her life, out of my sight. You've got 48 hours to close this gym, settle your debts, and disappear. If I see you after that, things will get unpleasant." Jeff tried to puff up his chest. "You can't threaten me. I'll call the cops." "And tell them what? That the husband of the woman you're screwing wants you to leave town? Good luck with that." I stepped closer, close enough that he could see I wasn't bluffing. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to break up with Bernice. You're going to tell her it was all a mistake, that you never loved her, that she was just convenient. You're going to break her heart the same way she broke mine. And if I don't?" I smiled, and something in my expression made Jeff take a step backward. "Then I release everything I've got to the police, the IRS, the state health department, and every newspaper in the county. Your steroid dealing, your tax evasion, your fraudulent business practices, all of it becomes public record. How long do you think it'll take before you're in handcuffs?" Jeff was sweating now, despite the cool temperature in the office. "You don't have proof of any of that." "Don't I?" I pulled out a small recording device and set it on his desk. "This has been recording our entire conversation. You haven't denied any of my accusations, which means you've essentially confessed. Want to keep talking?" The fight went out of him like air from a punctured tire. Jeff Maloney, the man who'd stolen my wife and my money, collapsed into his chair like a defeated child. "What do you want me to say to her?" "Whatever it takes to make her understand that you never gave a damn about her. Be creative, be cruel, make it hurt." That evening, Bernice came home in tears. She'd met with Jeff, expecting comfort and reassurance. Instead, she'd gotten a brutal breakup that left her questioning everything she thought she knew about their relationship. "He said it was all a mistake," she sobbed, sitting at our kitchen table with mascara running down her cheeks. "He said he never loved me, that it was just physical, that I was deluding myself if I thought it was more than that." I handed her a tissue, playing the role of concerned husband. "I'm sorry, honey, that must have been devastating." "He said I was too old, too desperate, too pathetic. He said he was embarrassed to be seen with me in public." The words came out between sobs, each one a knife twist of humiliation. "That's terrible. What kind of man would say something like that? I thought he cared about me. I thought we had something real. I gave him everything. My money, my reputation, my marriage, and he just threw it away like garbage." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married 26 years ago. Vulnerable, hurt, looking to me for comfort and protection. "What am I going to do, Gene? I've lost my job, my savings, my friend. I've ruined everything." This was the moment I'd been working toward for weeks. Bernice was broken, defeated, completely at my mercy. I could have been magnanimous, could have offered forgiveness and a fresh start. A better man might have done exactly that. But I wasn't feeling like a better man. "I don't know, Bernice. What do you think you should do?" She stared at me, searching my face for some sign of the husband who used to comfort her when she cried, who used to promise that everything would be okay. Do you think we could try again? Maybe go to counseling? Work through this? Work through what, exactly? The problems in our marriage, the distance between us, the reasons this happened. You mean the reasons you decided to cheat on me with a steroid-dealing con man? The reasons you forged my signature to steal $75,000 from our home? The reasons you lied to my face for months while destroying everything we built together? Bernice's face went white. "You know." "I know everything. The affair, the money, the lies, all of it. I've known for weeks. Then why didn't you say something? Why didn't you stop me? I looked at my wife. Really, looked at her. Maybe for the first time in years. She was still beautiful. Still the woman I'd fallen in love with in 1997. But she was also a stranger. Someone capable of betrayals I'd never imagined possible. Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. I wanted to understand who you really were underneath all the pretense and promises. And now I know. Bernice stood up from the table, her tears replaced by something harder. So, what happens now? Do you want a divorce? Do you want me to leave? I want you to understand what you've done. Not just to me, but to yourself. You had a good life, Bernice. A husband who loved you, a daughter who respected you, a career you'd worked 20 years to build. And you threw it all away for what? A few months of excitement with a man who saw you as nothing more than a bank account with benefits? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Jeff told me so himself. You were a mark, Bernice, a lonely middle-aged woman with access to money and a husband too trusting to ask questions. He played you like a fiddle and you danced to every tune. The words hit her like physical blows. I could see her trying to process the full scope of her humiliation, not just the affair, but the realization that she'd been manipulated by a man who never cared about her at all. You talked to Jeff? We had a very enlightening conversation. He told me all about your relationship, your plans, your investments. He also told me about the life insurance policy you took out on me. That was a nice touch, by the way. Really showed your commitment to our marriage. Bernice sank back into her chair, the last of her defiance crumbling. Jean, I can explain. No need, I understand perfectly. You and Aaron cooked up a plan to take me for everything I'm worth, and Jeff was supposed to be your reward for a job well done. The only problem was you picked the wrong mark. Jeff was broker than I am, and twice as desperate. What are you going to do? I stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at our quiet neighborhood. Mrs. O'Hara's light was on, as always. Somewhere out there, other couples were having dinner, helping kids with homework, living the life Bernice and I used to have. I'm going to give you a choice, I said without turning around. You can leave tonight, quietly and without drama. Take your clothes and your car and whatever dignity you have left. In exchange, I won't press charges for the forged mortgage documents, and I won't release the evidence of your affair to what's left of your professional contacts. And if I stay? Then tomorrow morning, I call the police, the State Bar Association, and every gossip in this town. I make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. Your career will be over, your reputation will be destroyed, and you'll spend the next few years dealing with fraud charges and civil lawsuits. Bernice sat in silence for a long time, weighing her options. Finally, she looked up at me with something that might have been respect. You planned this whole thing, didn't you? From the moment you found out about Jeff, you've been playing us. I learned from the best, I replied. You taught me that marriage is just another game, and the winner is whoever lies most convincingly. She nodded slowly, accepting the truth of it. What about Lila? What about her? What will you tell her about why I left? The truth. That her mother chose a stranger over her family, and when it blew up in her face, she didn't have the courage to face the consequences. Bernice flinched like I'd slapped her. She'll hate me. She might. Or she might understand that people make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have permanent consequences. Either way, that's between you and her. An hour later, I watched from the living room window as Bernice loaded her suitcases into her Honda Accord. She moved slowly, like a woman in a dream, stopping occasionally to look back at the house we'd shared for 15 years. Before she got in the car, she came back to the front door. I opened it, wondering if she was going to try one last plea for forgiveness. I did love you, Jean. Once upon a time, I really did love you. I know, I said. That's what makes this so sad. She drove away without looking back, and I stood in the doorway until her taillights disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside, poured myself a beer, and called Lila to tell her that her mother wouldn't be coming home. It was over. I'd won. So why did victory taste so much like ashes? The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal paperwork, financial reorganization, and awkward conversations with neighbors who wanted to know where Bernice had gone. I told them the truth, that we'd separated and she was staying with friends while we figured things out. In a town this size, that was enough to fuel months of speculation and gossip. Lila took the news better than I'd expected. She was hurt and angry, but not surprised. Apparently, my daughter had inherited more of my observational skills than I'd realized. I knew something was wrong, she told me during one of our phone calls. Mom was acting weird for months, and that whole thing with Coach Jeff at my awards ceremony was super awkward. I just didn't want to believe it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Are you? Because honestly, Dad, you seem kind of satisfied, like you got exactly what you wanted. She wasn't wrong. I was satisfied in a cold, calculating way that probably should have worried me more than it did. I'd identified a problem, formulated a solution, and executed it flawlessly. The fact that the problem was my marriage and the solution involved destroying multiple lives was something I was still processing. Your mother made her choices, I said. I just made sure she understood the consequences. And what about your choices? You could have tried to save the marriage. You could have fought for her instead of just letting her go. Some things can't be saved, sweetheart. Sometimes the damage is too deep to repair. Lila was quiet for a moment. What happens now? Do you want to get back together with Mom? Do you want a divorce? I don't know yet. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward. That was the truth. For weeks, I'd been so focused on revenge that I hadn't thought much about what came after. Now, sitting alone in a house that felt too big and too quiet, I was starting to understand the difference between winning and succeeding. I'd won the war against Bernice and Jeff, but what exactly had I gained? An empty house, a damaged relationship with my daughter, and the knowledge that I was capable of cruelties I'd never imagined. The answer came to me on a Thursday evening in November when Erin Walsh showed up at my front door. She looked terrible, pale, thin, with the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. The confident divorce attorney who'd been pulling strings behind the scenes was gone, replaced by a woman who looked like she was barely holding herself together. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Do we? I thought you and I had said everything we needed to say." "You don't understand. There are things you don't know, things about Bernice, about what really happened." I let her in, curious despite myself. Erin sat on my couch like a woman preparing for her own execution, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Bernice didn't tell you the whole truth about the affair," she began. "I'm pretty sure I got the highlights." "No, you didn't. The affair with Jeff, that was real, but it wasn't the beginning. It was the end." "The end of what?" Erin took a shaky breath. "Bernice has been having affairs for years, Jean. Multiple affairs with multiple men. Jeff was just the latest." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd thought I understood the scope of Bernice's betrayal, but apparently I'd only scratched the surface. How many years? 5, maybe 6. It started with a client at the law firm, then her personal trainer before Jeff, then a married man from her book club. I tried to talk her out of it, tried to get her to stop, but she said she felt alive for the first time in years. And you helped her. I covered for her. I gave her alibis, helped her hide the evidence, told her how to protect her assets if you ever found out. I thought I was being a good friend. "You thought you were enabling a serial cheater?" Erin nodded miserably. "I know that now, but at the time I thought she deserved to be happy. Her marriage seemed so dead, so routine. She said you barely talked anymore, that you'd become strangers living in the same house. So she decided to fix that by freaking half the town behind my back?" "She was going to leave you, Jean. After Lila graduated college, she was planning to file for divorce and start over. The thing with Jeff was supposed to be her exit strategy. He was going to be her new life after the divorce was finalized. But Jeff was broke. She didn't know that until it was too late. By then, she'd already invested the mortgage money, already committed to leaving you. When Jeff's business started failing, she panicked. That's when I suggested the life insurance policy." I stared at Erin, trying to process what she was telling me. "You suggested taking out life insurance on me?" "Not for the reason you think. It wasn't about eliminating you, Jean. It was about protecting Bernice financially if something happened to you before the divorce was final. If you died while you were still married, she'd get everything automatically. But if you divorced first and then died, she'd get nothing." "So you were planning for my convenient death?" "We were planning for every contingency. That's what lawyers do." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark street. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my wife, about the last 5 years of my life, all of it was a lie. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because Bernice is planning to come back. I turned around. What? She's been staying with her sister in Albany, but she's broke and desperate. Jeff won't return her calls. Her career is over, and she's got nowhere else to go. She thinks if she comes back and plays the repentant wife, you'll take her back. And you think I might? I think you're a good man who loved his wife for 26 years. I think you might be tempted to forgive her, especially if she tells you what you want to hear about being sorry and wanting to make things work. Aaron was right. Despite everything Bernice had done, despite all the lies and betrayals, there was still a part of me that missed her. The part that remembered our first apartment, our wedding day, the night Lila was born. Love doesn't die easily, even when it should. What do you want from me, Aaron? I want you to know the truth before she comes back. I want you to understand that this wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a pattern, a way of life. If you take her back, she'll do it again. And why should I believe you? You've been lying to me for years. Because I'm tired of lying. Because I'm tired of watching good people get destroyed by bad decisions. Because I think you deserve better than spending the rest of your life wondering when your wife is going to betray you again. Aaron stood up to leave, then paused at the door. There's something else you should know. The night of Lila's award ceremony, when Bernice was late, she wasn't with Jeff. She was with another man, someone new. She was already planning her next affair while the current one was falling apart. After Aaron left, I sat in my living room for hours, trying to reconcile this new information with everything I thought I knew about my life. 5 years of affairs, multiple men, a wife who saw our marriage as nothing more than a convenient cover story for her real life. The woman I'd been married to for 26 years was a complete stranger. 2 days later, Bernice came home. I was in the garage when I heard her car in the driveway. Through the window, I watched her sit in the Honda for several minutes, probably gathering courage for what she was about to attempt. She looked different, older, more fragile, like a woman who'd been through a war and lost. When she finally came to the garage door, her smile was tentative, hopeful. "Hi, Jean. Bernice. Can we talk, please?" I followed her into the house, curious to see how she was going to play this. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where she'd broken down after Jeff dumped her. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began. "About us, about our marriage, about the mistakes I've made." "Have you? I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust and damaged our relationship, but I hope that maybe we can find a way to fix this." It was a good performance. She hit all the right notes. Remorse, accountability, hope for the future. If I hadn't known about the other affairs, the years of deception, the calculated nature of her betrayals, I might have been tempted to believe her. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Counseling, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild what we had before things went wrong." "And what about Jeff?" "Jeff was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake that I'll regret for the rest of my life. He meant nothing to me, Jean. You have to believe that." "What about the others?" Bernice's face went white. "What others? The client from your law firm, the personal trainer before Jeff, the married man from your book club? Should I go on?" She opened and closed her mouth several times, looking like a fish gasping for air. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Aaron told me everything, Bernice. The whole truth this time, not the sanitized version you fed me before." The mask finally slipped, revealing the calculating woman underneath. "Erin's a bitter, jealous crapwitch who can't stand to see other people happy." "Is she? Or is she someone who got tired of covering for a serial cheater?" Bernice stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. "Fine. Yes, there were others. But they didn't mean anything, Jean. They were just distractions, ways to feel alive again in a marriage that had become routine and boring." Routine and boring. Is that what 26 years of marriage means to you? "It means I gave you the best years of my life and you took them for granted." "When was the last time you surprised me? When was the last time you made me feel special, desired, appreciated? When was the last time you gave me a chance to?" We stared at each other across the kitchen, two people who'd shared a life but never really known each other. The silence stretched between us like a chasm that couldn't be bridged. "So what happens now?" Bernice asked finally. "Now you leave. Again. And this time, you don't come back." "Jean, please. You had 5 years to figure out what you wanted, Bernice. 5 years of affairs and lies and betrayals. You made your choice every single time you decided to cheat instead of trying to fix our marriage. Now you have to live with the consequences. And if I refuse to leave? I pulled out my phone and showed her a video file. Then I released this to everyone we know. The video was security footage from the parking lot behind Murphy's Tavern, showing Bernice in a passionate embrace with a man I didn't recognize. According to the timestamp, it was taken the night of Lila's awards ceremony. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The point is, I have evidence of all your affairs, Bernice. All of them. Photos, videos, credit card receipts, hotel records. If you try to fight me on this, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. Bernice sank back into her chair, defeated. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from the best. She looked around our kitchen one last time, her eyes lingering on the photos of Lila, the coffee mug she'd used every morning for 15 years. The life she was about to lose forever. I really did love you once, she said quietly. I know. But love without loyalty is just selfishness with better marketing. An hour later, I watched Bernice drive away for the second and final time. She didn't look back, didn't pause at the end of the driveway for one last glimpse of the life she'd destroyed. I stood in my empty house, surrounded by the silence of complete victory. I'd won everything. The house, my dignity, my revenge against everyone who'd betrayed me. So why did it feel so much like losing? The answer came to me as I was cleaning out Bernice's closet the next day, packing up the remnants of our shared life. Hidden behind her winter coats, I found a shoebox full of photographs and mementos from our early years together. Our first date, our engagement, our wedding day, Lila's first steps, Christmas mornings, family vacations, ordinary moments that had seemed so important at the time. In every photo, we looked happy. Not performing happiness for the camera, but genuinely content with each other and our life together. When had that changed? When had we stopped being partners and become strangers? I thought about Aaron's words, about Bernice feeling alive for the first time in years. Had I been so focused on providing stability and security that I'd forgotten about passion and excitement? Had I taken our marriage for granted, assuming it would always be there no matter how little attention I paid to it? The questions haunted me as I finished packing Bernice's belongings. I'd been so focused on punishing her for her betrayals that I'd never stopped to examine my own role in the breakdown of our marriage. That evening, I called Lila and told her that her mother had come back and left again, and that this time it was permanent. Are you okay, Dad? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I finally know where I stand. And where's that? I looked around my empty house, at the spaces where Bernice's things used to be, at the life I'd chosen to defend by destroying everyone who'd threatened it. I'm exactly where I deserve to be, I said. After I hung up, I poured myself a beer and sat on my front porch watching the sun set over our quiet neighborhood. Mrs. O'Hara's light was on, as always. Somewhere out there, other couples were having dinner, arguing about bills, making love, taking their marriages for granted the same way I had. I'd won my war against betrayal and deception. I'd made sure that everyone who'd wronged me understood the consequences of their actions. I'd protected my dignity, my assets, and my reputation. But I was 51 years old, sitting alone on a porch that suddenly felt too big for one person, wondering if victory was worth the price I'd paid for it. The phone rang, interrupting my brooding. It was Mick from the gym. Gene, you son of a crap witch, I heard what happened. How are you holding up? I'm good, Mick. Better than good. Bees, you sound like a man who won the battle and lost the war. Come down to the gym. Let's work some of that self-pity out of your system. An hour later, I was back at the heavy bag, working out frustrations I couldn't quite name. Mick watched me train, occasionally offering technical corrections or philosophical observations. You know what your problem is? He said, as I finished a particularly brutal round. Enlighten me. You think revenge is supposed to feel good? Like in the movies, where the hero gets his payback and rides off into the sunset feeling satisfied. Doesn't it? Hell no. Real revenge feels like screw because it means you've become the kind of person who destroys other people's lives, even when they deserve it. I stopped hitting the bag and looked at him. So what was I supposed to do? Let them get away with it. You were supposed to do exactly what you did. Protect yourself, make them pay, send a message that you're not a sufferer, but you weren't supposed to enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. Didn't you? Come on, Gene. You've been planning this campaign for weeks, executing it like a general. Part of you loved every minute of it. He was right, and we both knew it. I had enjoyed it, the planning, the manipulation, the moment-by-moment destruction of people who'd thought they were smarter than me. So, what does that make me? Human, Mick said simply. Flawed, complicated, capable of both great love and terrible cruelty, just like everyone else. I drove home through the quiet streets of our dying town, past the closed factories and empty storefronts, past houses full of people living their imperfect lives as best they could. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked different somehow. Not empty, but expectant, like it was waiting for me to decide what came next. Inside, I made myself dinner and ate it at the kitchen table where Bernice and I had shared thousands of meals over the years. Tomorrow, I would call a divorce lawyer and begin the legal process of ending our marriage. I would figure out how to live alone, how to rebuild a life that didn't revolve around revenge and retribution. But tonight, I allowed myself one last moment of satisfaction. I had been betrayed by the people closest to me, and I had made them pay for it. I had protected what was mine and punished those who'd tried to take it away. They wanted a villain. I showed them hell. And if that made me a monster, at least I was a monster who'd won.